On today's show, what a weekend for the Padres, let me tell you. Not always in the good way, ladies and gentlemen. Recapping this weekend's series against the Kansas City Royals, including Yuki Matsui's blown save, a 1 million hit inning by the Padres offense, some of the stars heating up, some of the injuries occurring with Luis Arraez, Joe Musgrove, and Darvish. So, lots to get into. Let's go.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Monday, June 3rd. Folks, as always, I'm your host, with sometimes occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Arraez. You can follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiipeno, or if you want more of my baseball-related work, go check out Just Baseball, and go check out my newest podcast for Just Baseball called Baseball versus the World. Incredible title, I know. Doing all the silly, general, evergreen sort of topics. Last week talking about A-Rod doing an award show, all sorts of fun stuff on there. Go check it out wherever you get your podcast from, including YouTube, and including for this show, obviously free and available on all platforms, and you can check it out on YouTube if you're listening on audio, if you want to see all the cool, kung fu moves that I can do, or just the cool stuff that I can do, or whatever I'm wearing, or if you just like YouTube podcasts. Go check that out, guys. Today's show is brought to you, let me just tell you, by supplyhouse.com, the reliable way to get parts fast. Shop for your next plumbing, HVAC, or electrical job and get fast shipping from coast to coast at supplyhouse.com. Man, folks, what a weekend. My God, what a weekend. We got to get right into it because there was so much that happened this weekend in a series that I don't think a lot of people would expect that this would be a series with like a bunch of different storylines for the Padres. And it really was that, though. This was a crazy weekend. Hey, even outside this series, you saw like Juan Soto going absolutely off against the Giants and Blake Snell and winning them a bunch of games, seeing that stuff. So just crazy weekend in Padres land, Padres Twitter, Padres Reddit, wherever you frequent the most. And despite how the series ended, which we're going to start with yesterday's game, still overall, I think a pretty good showing, at least on the field, for the Padres this weekend. Losing yesterday's game, though, 4-3, a walk-off hit by one Sir Nick Lofton. It was a sacrifice fly. Before we get into the events of the end of this game, let me first just mention Michael King. Good start for Michael King. It wasn't like one of those starts where you got to see like a bunch of swing and miss. You didn't get that necessarily. He got 5 whiffs off of his sweeper, but basically nothing else. And his changeup wasn't necessarily being as dynamite as usual, but he was still pretty effective, going 7 innings, only 1 earned run, 2 walks, 4 Ks. That is now his 3rd consecutive quality start. Or no, not quality start by the technical term, but just in terms of my term. A pretty good start for our guy, Michael King. And it's really important because for me, as I've discussed a lot, I need to see more consistency from this guy. This is a dude who, I bring this up a lot, but 12 strikeouts, no runs against the Dodgers, then you get lit up for 6 by the Rockies. And it wasn't even at Coors Field. That's not great. But then, ever since then, he's lowered his ERA to 3.82 on the season. It is true that he's a reliever, acquiescing to being a starting pitcher, and while the velocity has fluctuated every now and then, I think he's been okay as of late, and I think that he's certainly been good for what his role was supposed to be, which is a number 4 starter. I think he's been a little bit of an overqualified number 4 starter, albeit the annoyance with the Jekyll and Hyde blow-ups. You know what I mean? Like, he has these great starts, but then he gets absolutely torched the next game. So that's been really frustrating, but he's still been good for his role. I think that Michael King, and I'm guilty of this too, a little bit of my frustration with him, admittedly, might have to do with the fact that the rest of the starting pitching for the Padres has not been as dynamite, well-rounded, all-encompassing as maybe we thought it was supposed to be. Michael King, all of a sudden, we need him to be better because of the unreliableness of Darvish and Joe Musgrove, who we'll get into it a little bit later. So that's been a problem. But overall, I think he's had like an up and down season, but he seems to be finding his stride at least a little bit. I will gladly take the quality start, not a lot of runs at the sacrifice of strikeouts and swings and miss, but we'll see. I still want to see more because, again, I don't like that he didn't miss as many bats in this game. It's usually not always a great sign, especially for someone who's supposed to strike out guys, and he's not necessarily a ground ball pitcher. But still, only 4 hits, can't complain. Can't complain. A really good start from Michael King, going 7 innings too, which they really needed, given the tax that the bullpen, I think, has had of late. And the bullpen has been very good. Until today, ladies and gentlemen. But aside from that, we also get some really cool moments in this one with Luis Arraez hitting a single that scores the first run of the game. He does injure himself on the play, though. Running into second, he gets thrown out. Running at second base, I don't know exactly what he was doing. Holds himself a little bit. I didn't know at first when I saw the play. I thought that he was just frustrated that he got thrown out, just like the rest of us, when you really have an opportunity to do even more damage, and getting thrown out there was just, again, really, really unfortunate. But it happens. It's okay. But he was injured and he got taken out from the game. However, Kevin Acee, a bunch of reports afterwards, Luis Arraez himself saying, "I'm good. I'll be in the lineup tomorrow." By the time you guys are watching this, I'm recording this at 8 ET on Sunday. So if that changes, sorry, I had to record the podcast now. But hopefully he's back in the lineup. This team cannot afford more injuries now, especially given that they seem to finally be at least hitting a little bit of a stride, and they certainly have definitely a much more manageable winning schedule potentially for the month of June. So hopefully they don't start just getting the injury bug now, which would be frustrating because it's like, really? Like right when we're starting to play the bad teams, our whole team gets hurt. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Otherwise, pretty solid game overall. Not a lot of dynamic performances. Donovan Solano, 2 for 4 in this game. The guy's hitting like 400 as a Padre. It's kind of insane that the Padres just picked him up. Like, I don't know what happened this offseason, but there was a couple players with Tommy Pham, Brandon Bell, Donovan Solano, where it's not like they had bad seasons and you were only getting them for name value, i.e. what the Padres did last year, right, with like a Nelson Cruz, where it's like, oh, he had a bad year, but say it's still Nelson Cruz, you know what I mean? But no, Donovan Solano and Brandon Bell, those guys aren't just name value. And Tommy Pham had a little bit of an incident yesterday, but as a batter this year, he's been very effective. So very weird, very classic baseball owners being cheap as hell, like type of moment. Like, let's just be real. Like, it's just, I know that Tommy Pham's on the White Sox, but I think that was just Jerry Ryan sort of covering for himself, being like, oh, well, it's not going to cost us anything. So if he can make us slightly better, then okay, fine. But it really goes to show you, like, guys, there are teams that could use a Donovan Solano that are like borderline contenders, and they just don't do it because baseball stinks like that sometimes. But Solano, I don't think has gotten enough credit. The Donnie Barrels thing is real, man. I don't care how old he is. The guy just flat out hits. And it's been amazing to watch. So shouts to him. Other highlights from this game, though. Not great. First of all, Luis Arraez, after getting pulled, they bring in my boy Tyler Wade and your boy Tyler Wade. Again, I want to emphasize, I'm not against Tyler Wade as a player. I'm really against the way that they managed him with Graham Pauley when he was on this team. And it's like, why are you calling our Graham Pauley if you're going to bring in a batter in Tyler Wade that's never been above average his whole career? And also, if he has like a 15, 16 game stretch where he's hitting under 200, you still won't play Graham Pauley. That was my issue, but as a bench player, he showcased why it's good that he's on this team. The speed is real, and Mike Schilt praised him after the game. I think that was a really great moment for him. Again, perfect bench guy, I think, for this team, and he praised him, saying, hey, look, he hadn't played for a while, got brought in, makes a really good defensive play at second base at one point, and then also gets a single, starts the offensive rally, allows them to score 2 more runs in the top of the 8th inning. And that was big, especially, by the way, because at first base, because he's a threat to run, as Schill also pointed out, pitcher throws the ball away. And then Tyler Wade is not only able to get to second, but all the way to third. So yeah, I like when you have some bench players who are just really good at one thing, not just meh at everything. It's like, well, then no. Like, I like that you have a Zokar who could be a really good defensive center fielder or left fielder replacement sometimes late in games when you have a lead with Profar. And I really like that Tyler Wade is a really, really fast player and not awful defensively, by the way. I'm not just saying that because of the good play. Not terrible. So I just like that. There is something to be had for having this spark plug type of player. I love Wade as a bench option. That's totally fine. And then, Eggy Rosario, when he was on this team, a guy who just crushes lefties. So that's really good. And it's hopefully Arraez won't be out for too long. Manny Machado gets a big single in this game as well, along with Tatis. Basically, they're big hits of the game for the most part, but seeing those two drive in some RBIs, really, really great. And we're going to get into them more along with Ha-Seong Kim as well, too. But unfortunately, Padres bullpen, specifically our guy, Yuki Matsui. Talked about on the show. We've talked about him all year, how he's just a little bit weird. He's a guy that doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, which isn't always a problem, but unfortunately, not a great showing from him. Gets absolutely torched in this one. Only gets 1 out, and it was the sacrifice fly that won the game. 2 hits, 3 runs, and a walk. Just a disaster from the beginning. This Padres team really is allergic to getting the sweep. sometimes. Like, it stinks that while, yes, they did win this series and they've won a lot of series this month, and they have a good record of 32-20, which is great, and they have a really easy upcoming schedule like we've talked about. You get the who are they playing next? You get the Angels, then you get the Diamondbacks, who have not been very good this year, and then you get like the A's after that. Like, really good stuff. So keep that in mind if you're upset. But I understand the frustration with this team being incapable of closing out a sweep, especially in a division and a race that can be decided by 1 or 2 games. It stinks that they always have like a bad game too. That's what it feels like. Other than a couple early on in the season, for you to go out there and have a blown save, and then the last series against the Marlins you lose 9-1. It's stuff like that where it's like they not only do they just choke in random situations during the regular season and just have this weird on and off sort of vibe to them, where when things are going well, then great, and if they're not, like it just feels like they're dejected sometimes. With this case, it feels like they're choking when they could just get a random series sweep against like a team that, by the way, is very good, which is one thing I believe Matsui deserves at least a little bit of flack for. Not flack for, I should say, is that, hey, it's a good team. And the Padres kept them in check basically all weekend. I know offense wasn't their strength, but you kept them in check and owned them pretty much all weekend. So I will take 2 out of 3. It's just unfortunate that the series keep ending this way, these series. So hopefully it doesn't, though. Hopefully it doesn't. But folks, we got a lot more to talk about. Just a couple more notes on this game and then getting into the rest of the series and some of the news announcements that were made, because believe me, it's a lot. But folks, I want to talk to you about our friends over at the Supply House, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you, Supply House is great. We love them. I just talked about them at the top of the podcast. You get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades. So not necessarily your groceries, not necessarily your boutiques, not necessarily your desserts and your foods or whatever. No, this is stuff like plumbing, HVAC, electrical products, all that sort of stuff. They can help you out. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast, folks. And if you need help, they've got experts that can help you out too. I know, don't worry, plumbing, but man, like I don't know how that works. That's why, well, don't worry. They have a bunch of experts that can help you out with the materials and the things you need. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free Trade Master program as well. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. So they got everything for you over here, folks. They really do. So go check it out. And check out why everyone's benefiting from Supply House at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. Go check it out. And just like that, folks, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, your team every day, free and available on all platforms, including the old tube of the U. Folks, in terms of other remaining thoughts on this that last game of the Padres series in which they blew, Matsui, some people tweeted at me because I posted on Twitter, anyone who's seen the picture of the kids who are like terrified of the bunny, I said, like, that's the Padres when it comes to getting a sweep. They're just terrified of it. People respond to me saying, why do they keep putting Yuki Matsui in these situations? Well, first of all, because of some events this weekend, and we're going to get into Mr. Stephen Kolek, the bullpen was taxed. You couldn't use Estrada. Could you have used Suarez maybe a little bit? But I'd be grateful for what Suarez has given us. So if he's not available, then let's give him a little bit of break. Could you have used Wandy Peralta? Maybe, right? But before this, Yuki had given up 2 runs in 5 2/3 innings in high leverage situations, and his strikeout rate was actually better in high leverage situations. So, at least in terms of the numbers, I don't think it's that like atrocious of a decision to be like, hey, let's bring in Matsui. This is a guy who I talked about previously on another episode, that even though he's not the best pitcher in this bullpen, to have guys like him that are like not your best, someone who has a winning experience, a winning pedigree, being a star closer in Japan, I think that means something. But unfortunately, hey, it happens, and this is a good team, as Mike Schill pointed out. So I'm not really furious with Yuki Matsui. And like I said, in high leverage, two runs over 5 2/3 innings, that's not that bad. It really isn't, especially as a reliever. So hasn't been that bad this year. And we can nitpick all we want, and we can attack the bullpen decisions. Don't get me wrong. There are times when I think that Bob Melvin in the past deserved criticism. But for me, I'm not blaming the manager that his guy that hasn't given up a run since May 10th comes in and can't even get an out. Like that becomes more of like, no, it's actually Matsui just didn't pitch well. You know what I mean? So let's not scapegoat the manager here. This is what happens sometimes. But alas, really disappointing to an otherwise really great weekend. Seriously. Really great weekend overall. We're going to get into that now. Let's talk about Saturday's game real quick. Because Saturday's game was a little bit shaky to start. We were a little bit worried. Just because, not necessarily our best starter, Randy Vasquez, but has a quality start going 5 innings, giving up 3 earned runs on 4 hits, 1 walk, 5 Ks. He's okay. He's fine, I guess. He's got some interesting stuff. And I think it's going to be interesting to see if, given more start opportunities, whether he can pull through. Of course, he's not a guy that I want to fully rely on, but I like the 4-seam fastball in this one. I thought it was really effective for the most part. And yes, the Royals aren't necessarily a great hitting team, but even still, for a guy like Randy Vasquez, I don't care who you're facing. You could be facing the A's with only 8 players, and I still think it's important for a guy like Vasquez, these young guys, to just get some good reps and improve a little bit for the most part. I do like that the spins were a little bit up on some of his stuff. Spin rate stuff, I should say. Remember when spin rate was like the ultimate topic of conversation? Now nobody talks about it anymore. Is it just me? I just think that that's funny that I don't know. Everyone got all into the spider tack stuff when it's yeah, it matters, but Darvish was on there, Cole was on there. Guess what? They're good. You know what I mean? They're still good. It wasn't be all and end all. No stat is. So that's lesson with Javi today, folks. Not to preach, get on my soapbox. But overall, this was a great showcase of why I'm not going to be super mad at Matsui, because the bullpen as a whole has been so good. Adrian Morejon, 1 2/3, no runs. Jeremiah Estrada, 1 inning. He does get hit a little bit, though. He walks 1 and gives up 2 hits. He does end up striking out the side, and he's a little bit pumped. You could see a tiny bit of emotion from Jeremiah Estrada there. And I was like, uh-oh, he's due. You know what I mean? At some point, him and Suarez aren't just going to have sub-1 ERAs, at least I don't think, for the rest of the year. I haven't seen anything from the two of them. Frankly, I feel like Estrada's stuff might be a little bit more exciting down the line. But regardless of that opinion that I don't really think I could back up right now, he still got out of the jam, and you love to see that. Wandy Peralta gets an out. Robert Suarez comes in. Really good outing overall. And the offense was really good in this game. Fernando Tatis Jr., the big star of this one, hits an absolute nuke in the first inning. We love to see that. To right center field. Really great. Kind of had that, Tatis has been good lately. 3 for 4 in this game with the home run and a walk as well. Jurickson Profar, believe it or not amazing this one. He does get an RBI, sac fly, but still, it was not a Jurickson Profar game, but we don't care. We don't care whatsoever. Kyle Higashioka hits a solo shot in this one. Really entertaining that they got some extra insurance runs in this one. They were up 5-3, and then you got some extra ones with the Higashioka home run and the Profar sac fly. Ha-Seong Kim, big double for him. That clears the bases. That basically gives them the win. Huge hit from Ha-Seong Kim, who, by the way, people keep getting on him sometimes. Last year, too, good player in high leverage situations, even when he's not hitting well. Even this year, for the first month of the season, when he was like a 90, 85 to 90 WRC plus guy, 10-15% below average, he still was pretty good in high leverage with runners in scoring position. So that says something about Ha-Seong Kim. Even when he's not doing well, he's doing well. Arraez had a sac fly. Just overall, a really good performance from the Padres. There's not too much to talk about here other than what I just mentioned. Other than the fact that we did get the news that both Joe Musgrove and Yu Darvish going to the IL, and this is what I was talking about earlier in the pod about Michael King, which is, it feels like, unfortunately, because of how Musgrove has pitched this year and the fact that he can't stay on the field, because of the fact that Yu Darvish, yeah, he got lit up. I told y'all, his home run fly ball rate was low, so he was due, but for him to go back on the IL again is really frustrating, which is why I am still, I got a couple messages. I'm not making this up. Javi, you hate the Darvish contract, and yet look at him, you idiot. You were wrong. Admit that you were wrong. I'm not admitting or anything. I could still be wrong. I don't know. But my thing is, the guy's old, and it's hard to bet on guys to age gracefully. He's the one I'd bet to age gracefully more than anybody else, but it explains why he was pulled from the last start pretty early. Fully explains that, right? So with those 2 injuries, we're going to see what happens with this team. I don't know if they are going to call up one of the exciting pitchers. I don't think, as of the time I've been recording, I haven't seen anything, but you'd have to imagine an Adam Mazur. he's been dealing in AAA so far this year. And every time I look up, he's having another good start. So he might be the one that they go for, and as opposed to a what's his face? As opposed to a Robbie Snelling, who, while he has the higher upside, he's the number one pitching prospect for the Padres for a reason. I kind of like the idea of being like, you know what? Let's actually wait a little bit. Give it a second. Hold on. You know what I mean? Like, hold on. Let's give him as much time as possible. But Adam Mazur, he has a pretty good start all the time, for the most part, as far as I'm concerned. In Double-A this year, 1.95 ERA. He got lit up in a couple starts so far at AAA, but I wouldn't be shocked to see them call him up because, let's be honest, guys, this is the Padres here, right? So when anyone flashes potential, that's what they do. Or maybe they do Robbie Snelling. Do they make a trade? I think they definitely are interested in it because this is a team now where you're looking at Joe Musgrove. Let's talk about him real quick. Also, is that this is a guy who's now been on the IL 3 times in the last year, and the fact, here's what's concerning. They shut Joe Musgrove down back in July last year, and he'd been dealing. The fact that you shut him down, and it's been it's a year later, and there's still these injury woes. You go on the IL once, right? At the beginning of the year, he comes back, has a pretty okay couple starts, including one good start where he only gives up one run. Then he's back to the IL. I'm worried, and I'm prepared for a worst case scenario because of the fact that you shut him down last year. He had the whole offseason to ramp it up, figure this out, and he comes back and he still can't. I'm preparing for the worst. I really am. I'm preparing for Joe Musgrove to even potentially be out for the season is what I'm prepared for. So hopefully that doesn't come to pass, but I'm saying all this to say I think it's more of a question of who the Padres trade for, not when or if they trade for someone. I think that it's a question of, do they trade for the big fish? Do they go back to Miami land? I wouldn't mind that because the Marlins are usually pretty silly. They're usually pretty silly. So I wouldn't mind trying to see if you can nickel and dime them without giving up some of your biggest prospects. We'll see. But it is Jesus Luzardo, and that's one of the best pitchers in the league. So do they go big game hunting, or do they just get some guys that have some depth, decent starters maybe, combined with maybe a prospect call-up or two, and then they hope either Darvish or Musgrove, one of the two, comes back and can be effective. So that gives you Cease, Musgrove/Darvish, Michael King, and then who am I forgetting in this rotation? Probably Matt Waldron, apparently, who's been really good lately. So then you have another guy in that rotation who just give you innings. I don't think they have to go big fish hunting, but I'm curious to see how it pans out because this is a weird starting pitcher trade market. I don't know fully who's available, and a lot of teams have had injuries and troubles when it comes to their starting pitching rotation. So I don't fully know who's available. But either way, we're going to see. I think a move will be made, but it just stinks, man. It really stinks that every time you're getting excited about this team, it seems like something bad happens, right? Just stinks. And his last, getting pulled early against the Marlins, it's one of the teams that he struggles against the most. That's Darvish, so it happens. But ladies and gentlemen, we are not done. Oh, no, we are not done. We got to talk about Friday's game. That was an absolute blast if you got to see it until the end. I mean, what the heck was that? My Lord. My Lord. We're going to talk about what I'm talking about in just a second, ladies and gentlemen. But first, let me give a shout out to our good old friends over at Prize Picks. Here's the thing. More than 5 million players. It's the number one fantasy sports app. Duh. Obviously, you've probably heard of it by now. It is the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash, man. It's really great. So check that out, guys, over at prizepicks.com. They've got plenty of promotions literally every week. If you check the app, they've got some before big games, whether it be Major League Baseball, whether it be WNBA, whether it be NFL Future stuff. Well, not NFL Future. That would be for FanDuel. My mistake, guys. Whether it be for NBA Finals. NBA Finals are coming up on Thursday. Whether it be for MLB, whether it be for the NHL playoffs. I believe the Rangers just lost, but they'll be having still some playoffs coming up, Stanley Cup stuff. They've got deals. They've got promotions. They've got community plays with some big celebrities they've got on there as well. PrizePicks has it all, man. Has it all. And optional for June only. There's always action, folks. And check this out. Make sure to try out esports if you'd like this month, because for every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your lineup doesn't win, you'll get your entry free back. Choose from Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and many more. So they got you all. They got you all. Even for the nerds like me who love their video games, they've got you covered with Prize Picks, folks. Go check it out, ladies and gentlemen. This week on Prize Picks, I'm feeling over on Dylan C strikeouts, man. I don't care. The start is coming. I said it on Friday's podcast. that he was due for a good start. None of the numbers have shown me that he's due for like a crazy regression, that he got super lucky. I'm going huge over on Dylan Cease strikeouts this week. That's just me, though. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Remember, that is LOCKEDONMLB. If it doesn't match, or if it does, hold on. Pretend I didn't say that. LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100, folks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. All right, folks, let's wind down this podcast with some happiness. Why don't we? Folks, here's the thing. Friday was a blast, man. Padres win by a score of 11-8 behind one Sir Dylan Cease. I just talked about that in ad read. He actually isn't that impressive, which is surprising to me. Against the Royals team that maybe they're just used to seeing him. He was in the American League with the White Sox. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe that's what I should have anticipated. But 5 1/3, giving up 3 earned runs on 5 hits, 1 walk, 5 Ks. It's not that he was bad, really, in this game. This was actually like a really slow game to start, by the way. The scoring starts in the top of the 6th inning with a Jurickson Profar RBI and a Fernando Tatis Jr. double. Oh yeah, folks. Oh yeah. Is Tatis heating up? He might be. It's exciting. But this game just gets absolutely on steroids after that. After the starters are basically out, right? Like, that's what's crazy is Michael Wacha, he leaves. I think he's might be heading to the IL actually. But 5 1/3 against his former team, giving up 2 earned runs on just 5 hits. Like, he was okay in this game, too. Again, it was kind of like a who blinks first. It really was. That's what it felt like. And then it got crazy. And, of course, the legendary inning, breaking a franchise record. I believe it was like 9 hits amounting to 6 runs. Crazy stuff. Let me just give you the recap of how that inning went. Luis Arraez, because, of course, gets a single. Then Tatis gets a single. Then Jurickson Profar gets a single. Then Cronenworth drives in a run with a single. Then Manny Machado drives in a run with a single. Then Donovan Solano drives in a run with a single. Then Jackson Merrill drives in a run with a single. Then Luis Campusano strikes out, who, by the way, I know, as one of the main ambassadors of the Luis Campusano hive, he deserves some flack. 0 F4 on the season because, why, guys? Why? You might be shocked by that. It's because he's not good defensively. I've been very disappointed with the fact that he hasn't really provided a lot of defensive value. It also feels like runners have a lot more of a green light on him. Higashioka hasn't been amazing either, but he really, really rough. And frankly, the defense has been so... There has been so little improvement on the defense that I think if Higashioka wasn't hitting anemically the way that he has been this year and not performing all that great, even for a backup, I think he'd be starting a little bit more. Strikes out. He's the first person to get out in this inning. Really bad. WRC plus in the 60s this month. Completely killing the 117 that he put up in May. I'm sorry, not in May, in, April and March. Just really rough stretch for Luis Campusano, to the point where, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see if the Padres go hunting and saying, is there a team out there with a steady catcher who can give you average offense for catcher level? So maybe that's like a 95 WRC plus. I don't know. And then at least be okay defensively. I would not be surprised, guys, especially because Preller might look at this and say, hey, maybe, if they're performing well, we got Ethan Salas at some point. That's our top prospect. So maybe down the line, he's the catcher of the future. Padres in catching, man. But anyway, Ha-Seong Kim then gets a single. Then Luis Arraez gets another single, driving in a run. Tatis strikes out, but it's okay. We forgive him. Jurickson Profar gets another single, another RBI for him in the inning. And then Jose Zokar gets brought in, and then Jake Cronenworth doubles. But not before some absolute madness in the bottom of the 9th in this game. Nelson Velasquez, first homers. Whatever. It's okay, Kolek. MJ Melendez grounds out. Then a single from Garrett Hampson. Hunter Renfroe gets a single, our old friend. And then with 2 outs, the guy just gets absolutely destroyed. And then they have to bring in Robert Suarez, who gives up some extra runs, by the way, from a Freddie Furman single. And then Nelson Velasquez, who started this off, by the way, this same inning with a home run, takes our man Zokar to the warning track, but ends the game with first and second. That's unacceptable. Like, genuinely unacceptable. And that's the type of outing that, yeah, Kolek probably deserves to be sent down. He needs to work on some things. You cannot have an outing like that. And by the way, his last start was against the Marlins. 1 1/3 gave up 3 earned runs in the wipeout loss, obviously. I just have not been impressed. And I think that the Padres system has some more interesting names in it that they should try and pull from. That's disastrous. And he was already on the hot seat, in my opinion, for this Padres bullpen that has been very good. But that's unacceptable. It really is for the bullpen to be in a situation where you have to bring in Robert Suarez, which, by the way, does that play into him not being available on Sunday? Yeah, I have to think so. It's inexcusable. This happened a couple times last year. I just mentioned this earlier with bullpen management that I think managers get scapegoated sometimes. Guys, it's not the manager's fault that they bring in a reliever and they're like, hey, we have a 8-run lead. You can get 3 outs, right? It's not his fault necessarily. I'm not saying Mike Schultz ever anyone's fault name for this, but that I'm just piggybacking off of my point that I was making before. So that's really annoying. Thankfully, though, they get the W, obviously. And it really needs to be brought up that the Padres stars, as of late, have been showing signs of turning things around. Obviously, you had Profar in this game, 3 for 5 with 2 RBIs. He was great. You had Luis Arraez, 4-hit night for him, 2 RBIs. Amazing stuff. Jake Cronenworth, 2 for 5 with 3 RBIs and a double. Really good stuff. But also, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., and Ha-Seong have all been really good over the last 10 games. Tatis being the most impressive one over his last 10 games. He's slashing .311 with a .354 on base and a .489 slugging. He's got 2 home runs over the last 10 games. He's also got 2 doubles. Right? Not too bad. 6 RBIs, 147 WRC plus. And by the way, in this game, 3 balls hit over 108 miles per hour. I'm pretty sure it was this game. Just really, really impressive stuff from our guy Tatis that I think needs to be brought up. Or no, I'm sorry, it was Saturday's game when Tatis had the 3 hits that were hit really hard. I think it was. Was it? Saturday? Yeah, Saturday he had a 110 and a 108 miles per hour off the bat. Let me check Friday real quick. Let me check Friday. I don't have it up. Damn you, baseball savant. One of the problems when I do this podcast is that bringing up Fangraphs and some of the stats sites, they like mess with my computer a lot of times. No, it was the Friday game. I was right. So 110 miles per hour off the bat in this game, one at 109.6 miles per hour off the bat in this game, and another one that he actually didn't get on base with, 108.3 miles per hour off the bat. That spike in hard hit rate is really interesting. And it's why I was starting to believe in a player like Xander Bogaerts before he had before he got injured. His heart rate was spiking. But he's not the only one. Manny Machado's last 10 games. Is it Manny? Yeah. Manny Machado's last 10 games. 314, 415, 429 slash line. Good for a 147 WRC plus. He's not slugging as much as we'd like. We still don't have any home runs from him, but 4 doubles, and he even had a 3-walk game. So Machado starting to show some signs. Low-key has been pretty good lately, by the way. He might finally be turning it around to at least being a player that we can count on a little bit. I mean, for God's sake, man. And then lastly, over his last 10 games, Ha-Seong has been returning very quietly. 250, 333, 469 slash line, 2 doubles, a home run, 133 WRC plus. He's been great. Also stole 3 bags over that time frame. And even when he's not hitting, he's providing defensive value. That's what I love about Ha-Seong. But the 3 guys who've been really good, Kim, surge in his walk rate. That's one of the reasons that he became a better batter last year, is he's seen more pitches. He's not being thrown off by high heat the same way he was that rookie year. And even his second year a little bit. So really impressive stuff from Ha-Seong, Tatis, and Machado. We love to see that. Hopefully it continues. I mean, we've been waiting for the Tatis, I am an MVP candidate moment for a real long time now. I don't even need him to be the MVP, but what we need is a star. You know what I mean? It's really cannot be emphasized enough how crazy it is that Jerkson Profar has been the star for this team. And it's actually literally not even close. Not even close. I think he's 11th or 12th in wins above replacement in all of baseball right now. And he leads, or led, depending on the events of yesterday, the league in on-base percentage. He's probably like second now because of Soto's good game. So just really nuts stuff from our guy. I didn't do a mailbag today. I just felt like I didn't have time. So my apologies for that, everybody. But we will bring it back next week. So feel free to send your comments. And whatnot. And that's another thing. I didn't get a lot of comments this week, so maybe sometimes there's just not much to talk about, and that's fine. I understand you. But also, thank you all for 1,600 subscribers on YouTube if you're watching it right now. Tell your friends, even people who don't care about the Padres, just a sub. It makes me happy. I like seeing the numbers go up. Very, very cool. So thank you. Thank you, everyone, for giving me those subs. And also, I didn't realize it, I've done more than 800 Padres episodes, so whoever wants to say I don't like this team and I'm a traitor or whatever the heck, I wouldn't be covering them for this long, man. You know what I mean? I'm not making Mark Zuckerberg money doing this or anything like that. Relax. I'm not making no Bill Simmons podcaster galore. I'm not Pat McAfee or anything you know what I mean? Let's relax. I've really enjoyed, though, covering this team. This has been a lot of fun. While it was a disappointing end to the series, I must emphasize the bigger thing for me are the injuries. And the final result was rough, but I really do think you've got this series upcoming against the Angels with no Trout. You've got another series against the D-backs, who are really bad right now. No one can hit Corbin Carroll, by the way. It's not a fluke. Something's wrong with his swing. He needs to adjust. Get the D-backs at the right time. And then also, you get to play the A's after that. So that's why I'm not freaking out about the result. They have a very, very easy schedule. In fact, based on winning percentage, the first month and a half of the season, the first 60 games, the Padres had the third highest win percentage among all their combined opponents, and that's the people they faced. For the rest of the way, they have the 21st winning percentage in terms of all their opponents combined. So, in theory, it should hopefully get just a little bit better, just a little bit. That does not mean that it's a layup, right? They could still lose. We literally saw that they could lose to the Rockies, right? Like, we've seen them lose to bad teams. But it's reason to be excited, I think, is what I'm trying to explain to you guys. But yeah, that's it, everybody. That about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from, as always. And until next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My fire faithful homies, take care.